Welcome to Learning from Indigenous Leaders, Climate Change and Public Health, a video series where we hear from various speakers regarding the effect of climate change on health, why it's important, and what both public health practitioners and the public can do to improve health in the face of climate change. This series was produced by the National Collaborating Center for Infectious Diseases, or the NCCID. The NCCID is hosted at the University of Manitoba, situated on the ancestral lands of the Anishinaabeg, Anishinaabeg, Dakota Oyate, Dene Sulene, and Naheithawak/Ininwak nations. It is also in the heart of the homeland of the Métis Nation. At NCCID, we strive to honor the lands and their original caretakers in our work. We acknowledge that we are on Treaty 1 land. We recognize that this and other treaties have not been implemented in good faith, as a part of an ongoing process of colonization that benefits some of us and harms others. We are committed to working with our partners towards reconciliation. In this video, you'll be hearing the main take-home messages from each of our 5 speakers: Andrew Arick, Dr. Brittany Bingham, Dr. Dawn Martin-Hill, Maureen Gustafson, and Dr. Zoe Todd. Let's hear from them now.
When I think about the climate change crisis or issue, I often think about, in all of my work, actually, I think about, how can I be a good ancestor for my future generations? How can I make a positive contribution to all of our future generations? And that's an Indigenous way, predominantly, I think, of thinking about everything that we do, is that generational perspective and that relational and kinship perspective. So one of my favorite quotes is, one generation plants the trees, so the next generation gets the shade. And that's really how I think about our need for immediate climate action, is that we really need to work together to make sure that the next generations can benefit from the positive work that we do in this area now. So solving this climate change issue and protecting our beautiful lands and territories, that's really what we need to prioritize for all of our future generations.
There's different spaces that are conducive to healing, and being out in the land for Indigenous people is, exponentially better than being in a room. And I think they need to start rethinking hospitals and recovery and rehabilitation spaces in order to address even climate change. They should be taking advantage of what we have now a little bit more than they are the natural world.
Climate change is happening and we are aware of it. We are also adapting to it also, and informing to the community what changes that are occurring, because word of mouth comes around quickly, and if it's important, people will know quickly about it.
Something I'd like to leave the audience with is just this emphasis on the relationships at a high level between those big ideas, because again, we do tend to get lost in the details, especially as people who are like subject experts in specific areas, right? So someone who's an expert in like infectious disease, or who's an immunologist, or even a public health nurse, anyone in this field tends to specialize in a specific area, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And that's a really good thing, because it means that we have folks who know a lot about certain areas and can lend that expertise when it's needed. But it becomes a challenge when we forget to zoom back out and understand the bigger picture, right? Because all of these things are connected. And when we don't think about that, it becomes really hard to propose solutions that address the bigger picture. Not that any one solution can address everything, but we need to be thinking about these things from a more holistic perspective, right? So that would be my key takeaway, is thinking about the relationships. Again, we talk about relationships between humans and between other living things, but we also talk about like relationships in terms of ideas, right? And some of the ones that I talked about and focused on have been like the relationship between climate change and colonization, the relationship between climate change and the health of Indigenous people. Like really all of those are so intimately connected. It's really important to remember. So I'll leave it at that.
We are sitting at a moment in human history that invites us to be our very most courageous and imaginative selves, and that we must honor and acknowledge the suffering that climate change is causing to many, many people, especially and disproportionately people who have been historically oppressed by the current systems that structure the world. But in that, there is also the important reality that we can and will change things collectively, that this is something that we will collectively figure out. I truly believe that. I believe that given just the diverse and dynamic knowledge and experiences that we have to guide us, and the collective will that we have to live in the world together, is what is going to help us get through this and find ways to be in the world that are different from how we currently are. There will continue to be suffering until we actually figure out how to do that. And this won't be an easy experience, but I fervently believe that humans have encountered so many difficult, hard, impossible experiences in the past. And it is our interdependence, it is our inextricable relationality to one another and to the world around us that got us through that and will get us through this. And so it's just a reminder that we need one another, and we have to figure out how to be there for one another through this. And we have to make sure that systems that try to alienate us from that are no longer allowed to be the ones that speak for us or have authority over us. And so that's also our way through other interrelated challenges that are connected to climate change. So in tackling climate change, we're also tackling a whole host of other injustices that have created the world as we currently experience it. And we have this opportunity to dismantle white supremacy, colonialism, capitalism, heteropatriarchy, and these other forces that have caused so much harm, and find our way through to something that better serves us and better serves the world that we depend upon. And that's the message I'd like to leave people with.
Thank you for listening. All videos, infographics, and resources from the Learning from Indigenous Leaders Climate Change and Public Health series are available on the NCCID website.